Aloha, and welcome to another episode of Tiki Room Talk, a Disney podcast. My name is Angela, and I am joined by my sister, Christina.
We will be your master of ceremonies on this enchanted journey into weekly top 5 topics and helpful tips when experiencing all things Disney.
You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, YouTube, or on Libsyn. Just search Tiki Room Talk. If you like listening to us, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Tiki Room Talk. We'd love to hear your feedback or answer any questions you may have, so be sure to reach out to us.
This week's topic, we will be discussing the top 5 Disney books.
Our siestas keep getting shorter and shorter, so let's wake up the Glee Club,
put on the show, and get Tiki talking.
Welcome back to another episode of Tiki Room Talk Teen. We've got to discuss some of the stuff that's going on right now with Disney.
Okay, as we're recording this, all Disney parks are officially closed.
Yes. We're recording this on March 15th, and as of March 14th, all of the parks have closed due to the coronavirus.
Until the end of March. So March 31st, supposedly, should be the last day of the closure.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, well, Disneyland hasn't closed since 9/11, and that might have been one of the only times they were closed. And Disney World had only closed about 3 or 4 times, but just recently for a couple past hurricanes, they've been closed. For a day, though.
Yeah.
So this is
huge.
pretty big.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge for, all companies. A lot of companies are closing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty serious, so we hope all of our listeners are staying healthy.
And making smart choices.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very important. And we're very sorry for all the people who have to cancel their trips and have to, move their plans around, but hopefully, Disney's going to be able to work with everybody and everyone will still be able to
I'm sure they'll be fully
trips.
Accommodating, but I know the frustration's probably there.
Yeah,
so we
absolutely.
apologize for all that.
Yes. But this is a special episode for us today because we have our third guest. Drum roll, please. It's our friend and fellow Disney podcaster, Emily. Emily, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Tina, Ange. It is so great to be here. I love that you guys started this podcast. It's so much fun. I was actually getting caught up on your podcast when I was driving home to be here with you guys. Luckily, it's nice that we all live in the same hometown, so it's kind of fun.
Great. And we have Emily and her podcast co-host, Courtney, to thank for our podcast because you guys helped us get it started. So we really appreciate you for that.
Yeah, they've answered all of our questions.
Yeah.
As TD says they were.
Yes.
Oh, this is so fun because we were inspired by our friends on the Mad Chatters, Jeremy and Derek, and now I feel like we've paid it forward to you guys that we've inspired you. This is great.
We're
The
doing
podcast community is awesome.
Yes.
Everybody's really supportive. It's nice. So Emily and I actually go way back. We've actually been working on watching every Disney animated movie in order of release date. And so we'll get together several times a year since high school to catch up and watch all of these animated movies. I think we're currently on The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
I want to say, yeah.
Oh, you're pretty far along.
Yeah, we're doing good. And it's fun because even some of the older ones I had never seen before.
Yeah, so to caveat, it may seem like, wow, since high school, why is it taking us this long to get through only 53, 54 movies? But when we say every animated, we kind of expanded to literally every movie that has animation in it. And not just limited to the Walt Disney Animation Studios, but also all of their subsidiary
I don't know. We've hit
studios.
A couple of the sequels and stuff so far.
But shout out to Disney Plus for helping us fill in the gaps. Like when we didn't have Reluctant Dragon or some of the Melody Time. Thank you, Disney Plus, for coming into existence.
Yeah, there were a couple we had to skip and go back to because we couldn't find copies of it. Like the older ones, like Melody Time and stuff like that. We had a tough time with that, but yes, Disney Plus has made it much
Coming
easier.
in clutch.
But, and also, so Emily is also half of the duo behind the awesome podcast Book of the Mouse Club, which she has to definitely tell us all about. So we have a couple questions for you, Emily. Okay. So our listeners can understand how awesome you are a little bit. Let's start with, when was the first time you visited a Disney park?
That's really hard for me to know. I know my mom was pregnant with me in a Disney park. So, literally since before I was born. because she took my sister. My sister's 3 years older than me, so that was like my sister's first trip to Disney. So probably somewhere in 91, 92.
It's a good year.
But my family used to go every other year before the 9/11 tragedy, and then we kind of took a hiatus like most families did from traveling. So we used to go every other year. So probably the first ones I can remember are in the 97, 98 era, and it's just small little snapshots.
Yeah.
So I think it's somewhere in there.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
And how many times have you visited Disney World or any of the Disney resorts?
So I've only ever been to Walt Disney World Resort. I'm dying to get to Disneyland, and every time I plan it or think I can do it, something comes up. Airfare's too expensive.
Yeah.
Not now, though.
Yeah,
Or all these other things happen that I haven't quite gone to California yet. But for the number of times, that's also really hard because I did the Disney College program and got to work there and could go for free. So I was literally there every day for 6 months.
I don't think you can even put a count on that.
Yeah. Plus, between working and play, was there every day for 6 months. And then with family visits, I know I went once 3 times in 1 year. So the year of our senior trip, Christina, I went one time before our senior trip, like literally 6 months before with my family. Then we went on our senior trip, and then I had like an end of summer vacation back again with my family. So even though it spanned technically 2 numeric years, it was all within 365 days. And I went to the parks 3 times, and
that's pretty good.
I felt so good. And now I'm back on. I've gone since I left my college program, I think every year over the past 5 years. Yeah. Because I did my program in 2015.
Okay.
And I've gone, even if it's just for like a short 3-day, 4-day weekend, just to mostly also see my friends. I have so many friends that work down there still.
It's nice.
So tell us a little bit about your college program.
It's really fun. I think everyone should do it, even if working in the Walt Disney Company is not necessarily something in your future. But if you definitely want to work in any capacity in the Walt Disney Company, do the Disney College program. Even if you're like, I don't want to work in the theme park as my full role, it opens so many doors. So I worked in entertainment. I had lots of fun little mouse friends that invited me all over the parks. So I worked in every park as well as resorts. So that was kind of cool that my role made me what was called global, that I could be deployed anywhere and work in my role. So that was really fun. And I got to work with so many cool people. I'm still close friends with my roommates. We still talk every day in our group chat, even though we're trying to plan like a 5-year anniversary.
Aww.
So it's such a great program that you're going to work a lot. So I do caution, like, don't go thinking that it's incredibly fun, but you are going to work hard. But it's a great transition. I did it right after college, and I found a great transition going from the college life to a working life, because you do have to be up and meet your shifts, and you have processes you have to do, your responsibilities in your role. So it's a great transition, and you have a lot of fun and meet people from all over the world and all over the country, and you get to go to the Disney parks every day. It was so much fun to have.
About that?
I had the liberty to just be like, oh, I finished a shift, I really just want to like go watch. At the time it was Dream Along with Mickey. I just kind of want to watch the show and sit in the hub grass and then leave, and I didn't feel like, oh, because I spent money on this ticket, I really need to get a full day experience in every time. My first trip after working the program, and I was in a park all day, I was exhausted. Because I got so used to over my program that I'd be like, yeah, I'm just gonna go for like 3 hours and call it a day, because you didn't have to fit everything in a day.
Right.
It was so nice to be a local. And then when I wasn't local anymore, and I was in Magic Kingdom for 14 hours. I did like the rope drop through the extra magic hours. I was there all day, and I was like, this is exhausting. It was so much fun, but I was like limping the rest of the trip because like my feet just hurt so much.
So here come the hard questions,
Oh,
though.
gosh.
I know. If you had to pick a favorite park, what would your favorite be?
I think Magic Kingdom is still my favorite, just because of the nostalgia and the memories I made there in my program, and just seeing the families have so much fun. But I've always been a really big fan of Hollywood Studios.
Yeah?
Especially now that it's open, but I love Sunset Boulevard and that main stretch.
Yeah.
It's
Great
themed
Movie Ride
so-
was my
so
favorite.
well.
Rest in
I
peace, Great
know.
Movie Ride.
Sorry, Great Movie Ride.
It was themed so well. I'm curious to see. I love Toy Story Land. They did a great job with that.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's adorable. I think once the new trees and everything grow in, and as it just grows, it'll get better. My next trip, hopefully it's still going off, was to go see Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really excited to see that. So I've always really enjoyed Hollywood Studios.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it when it was in its original formation. I loved Streets of America.
Mm-hmm.
I was really
I missed those.
I missed that, and I was really thankful in my program before they closed Streets of America. I got to see the last season of Osborne Lights. Because I had never seen them before.
I always wanted to see. Never got a chance.
I
to
finally
see
got to see them, and when we knew it was going to be the last one, I was literally there every day at night, just as often as I could, just to see the lights. I'm like, I don't care if it's the same 4 songs over and over.
Yeah.
I will never get to see this again.
Yeah.
So I really missed that. There was something really special about that park with those. But right now, just because I haven't seen New Galaxy's Edge, I'm still very, very partial to Magic Kingdom, but Animal Kingdom's starting to grow on me more.
Yeah, that happened to me. I was always a big Magic Kingdom fan, and then even when I got a little bit older, like I kind of shift to Epcot a little bit. I did not like Epcot when I was younger. I guess
I think
as
it's
a
pretty
little
normal.
kid, the culture's like not something big for you and stuff. But now I have to say, I think it would be Animal Kingdom. I
Really?
do. I love animals. I'm a big animal lover. And man, I could ride that safari all day.
So our friend Jeremy from the Mad Chatters would be so happy. He's a big supporter of Animal Kingdom, and I think it's one of those that when you can appreciate the nuances of that park, as well as more of the culture side, it's kind of Epcot-ish in a way.
Yeah,
with the culture and the animals,
and you get like a true African like marketplace and stuff like that.
And I really think since they opened up the nightlife, and now that it really is a full day park, I've appreciated it so much more now than I did.
It's really neat,
back then. And now that they have more attractions
with Pandora and stuff too.
It's really
Pandora
helped round it out.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
Very cool.
And they do that show on the tree too.
It's like called Tree Awakenings, I think.
On the tree, yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
Yes, that's pretty neat.
What is your favorite Disney ride?
This is so difficult.
I know, it's so hard.
So I listened to your previous shows also in preparation because I was like, what is it going to be like to be on Tiki Room Talk? And I listened to your ones that had guests on it, so like I've been thinking about this for days, and I don't know.
I go a top 3.
I go back and forth between Space Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
I've always really loved Big Thunder Mountain because I really like the storytelling behind it. I like the frontier. It's very Americana.
Yeah.
But since really my college program but also being close with my co-host Courtney on Book and Mouse, her college program was Space Mountain.
Okay.
So I've learned so much about Space Mountain from her that now I'm like also a small mini Space Mountain geek thanks to her. So I've always really enjoyed those two. Pandora's just awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that I like doubted it, but I mean, Avatar is a good movie. I've seen it.
I've never seen Avatar.
Like, what are they gonna like do with this? You know, like I don't know.
Flight of Passage is just like wow. But nostalgia's sake, Space Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain for me.
Yeah. All I have to say is wait till you go on Rise of the Resistance.
I know.
I can't wait. No spoilers, please. I've been avoiding.
I'm not.
Don't watch it.
But it's amazing.
On YouTube, don't ruin it.
Don't ruin it. But it's worth getting there at 7 o'clock in the morning. Your favorite Disney memory?
All right, so I am going to exclude some of my Disney College Program ones on this one to, one, not ruin some magic for people, but two, a lot of those memories belong to my friends, Mickey, Minnie, Donald. But my favorite memory with my family, we were actually Grand Marshals in the parade.
Oh my god!
Once.
What?
And that has always been my mom's dream. So this was the trip I took before our senior trip, or was the one right after? It was in that 1 year of where I went 3 times.
1 year span.
It was in 2009, so it was before our senior trip. I was just with my mom, my aunt, and my cousin. And it was our last day in the Magic Kingdom. We decided to just go back to Main Street. We had like a half day, and we're meeting characters in the square. We were in the chapeau, in the hat shop.
Yeah.
And this guy just walks up to us and starts talking to us, and he's a cast member, and he goes, "What are you doing around 3 o'clock?" And my mom's like, "The parade's at 3 o'clock. We plan on watching the parade. Why?" And like my mom knew. She was so excited.
Oh, that's so funny.
And this is well before the days of my Disney Experience app. So like we used to print out little itineraries like in a brochure form, and this is how we would get excited, and we would write down like our top 10 things we wanted to do, and that's where we kept all of our reservation numbers for restaurants and whatever. And when he asked us to be Grand Marshal of the Parade, my mom literally cried because she showed him her pamphlet. Her top number one thing she's always wanted to do, and she's been writing it for years, was to be Grand Marshal in a parade.
That's sweet.
So she was so excited that our family got picked. And it was so much fun. And I really caught the Disney bug at that one. Like, I really loved Disney. But after that experience, I was like, I need to work here. I need to be here. And I really, really caught the parks bug more than just the generic Disney bug. I was much more into the films. I liked going to the parks, but I was so much more into the films and the history before. And at this point, I would say 2009 after that experience. It was so cool. We were in the car. There's pictures of us in the car in front of Cinderella Castle. It's great. It was such a wonderful experience. And it turned out the guy who picked us was family friends with one of my mom's coworkers.
Oh my god.
So like
small world.
Literally
Yeah,
small world.
world.
So we've actually kept in touch with him ever since that.
That's so awesome.
That's funny. So before we head into our top 5, tell us real quick about your podcast, because it's a great podcast.
So my friend Courtney and I have been friends since college. She and I were English 101 college writing composition TAs together, and it was so funny. So like for the first couple weeks you thought we didn't like each other, and then when we suddenly were like, oh, I love Disney, we were best friends, like, and have been ever since. And she lives in Florida. She works for Disney. She's in a backstage role. When she transitioned out of her college program then to a professional internship. So do the college program. It will get you to an administrative backstage role. So she works for them analyzing data, and she's really active on the Disney Twitter universe. And being a local, she's really surrounded by the Disney fandom, but also the work side, and she connected with other podcasters as friends. And so she got on their podcast as a guest, and she was like, Emily, we have to do a podcast. And so we were trying to think of a niche that isn't already covered. We knew we didn't want to do news. That's really hard to keep up with. And between her schedule and I teach, it's really hard to do something every week to really stay on top of that. But we love to read. And both of us read Disney books about the parks, about people, of original stories. So we were like, this would be perfect. And we hadn't really seen a dedicated podcast to books. So we decided to do that, and as a play on Book of the Month, we are Book of the Mouse Club. And our
with the most adorable icon, by the way.
And opening. I can recite your guys' opening. I sing the
we
songs
had a lot of
every
fun. There's a lot of Disney movies out there that reference books in some way. So our opening has Alice in Wonderland and Tigger about bouncing out of the book, and Belle, of course. So that was really fun, and it really took off. Our original plan was just to do one book a month, like a true Book of the Month club. But in that process, especially when we started interviewing authors, we would invite authors to, hey, we read your book, we'd love to hear from you as well. People started then contacting us, or authors would put us in contact with their friends, and we've only been podcasting for 2 years, and we're on episode 36. So we're like, that's awesome. More than one episode a month. So the content has really taken off, and we have so much fun with it, and it's put us in contact with, I have friends now all over the country who are podcasters, who listen to our show, and now I get to be on your show. And so this is really fun, and I'm all about the podcast universe.
It's
well, and yours is so, like what you said, it's so unique, because there really aren't any other ones that I've seen that are kind of like what you guys talk about.
Another friend of ours, Brett, who does notably Disney, his is Disney music and books. So he focuses on both. So we both kind of started not too far apart from each other, so we didn't really know of each other until we connected on Twitter. And his is also a great podcast. A lot of other podcasts talk about books, but it's not strictly dedicated as a book club. So it's been fun to talk with other podcasters when they do cover a book. Like we've talked with Dan Heaton of Tomorrow's Society, Tomorrowland Society, and his is great. He interviews a lot of authors and stuff too, but he also does Imagineering and lots of great things. So it's fun when we can all connect at the same level, but in the meantime, we will cover all the books. And my library has grown a lot.
Oh, I'm sure,
I had like maybe 5 or 6 books before we started, and now I have like a whole half a bookshelf and growing that is dedicated to Disney inspired or Disney books.
And that's never a bad thing. I'm such a bookworm, so that's why I nerd out on your podcast.
Oh yeah.
We really try to make it that you don't have to necessarily listen in order, that if you're like, oh, we're covering a book that you're not interested in, it's not like you're gonna miss something because then you jump to a different episode. So it's really not meant to be something very serial that you have to listen to each one. You can really just pick
up
and
wherever
choose. Or if you know,
want.
like, oh, I really want to listen to this podcast. Also, why we try to stay away from too much current news is so that these episodes last a little bit longer. So, like, our next one, we are reading Tinkerbell Talks. We're going to be interviewing Margaret Carey,
Which I think is so
who
cool.
was the reference model for Tinkerbell this coming week. But if you didn't have a chance to read it, but let's say 3 months from now, you got to, you don't feel so listening to the podcast months or even years later that it's dated. So by sticking to a book, we found that it would probably have a really good staying power. So we're hoping that everyone jump in for an episode or two.
Absolutely. Yes, please check them out.
So, as we said before, we decided to have Emily be a special guest today because she's got, obviously, the best insight on this topic.
And this topic is definitely a fun one because there are so many wonderful Disney-produced books and books about Disney that are out there.
It's true. You can find books on every Disney topic, from Hidden Mickeys to the rich history of Disneyland. Like I said before, I'm a big bookworm, so I couldn't wait to do this episode. We've been planning this for a little while. About it.
And I myself enjoy the occasional book, and must say all of the books on our list have intrigued me. Like, I've read a couple, but the ones that I haven't have intrigued me.
Yeah, so we hope that our top 5 Disney books can encourage you to pick them up and curl up in a comfy chair with a nice hot cup of hot cocoa and let them take you to a happy Disney place.
And we picked the top 5 Disney books plus 2 honorable mentions that are classics adapted into Disney fame. And Teen, start us off with our number 5.
Okay, so number 5, we have A Historical Tour of Walt Disney World by Andrew Kist. Is it Kist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So quick synopsis of this book. Andrew Kist pulls back the pixie dust curtain on some of the most iconic rides in the Magic Kingdom. First, he explores the rides themselves, from the Jungle Cruise and Pirates of the Caribbean to Spaceship Earth and Country Bear Jamboree. Then, in a departure from most other tour books about Walt Disney World, Kist also explains the many historical and cultural influences that inspired Walt Disney and his Imagineers. That synopsis was taken from barnesandnoble.com, which you can also find the book on. So, some of the attractions that the book covers are Main Street USA, Jungle Cruise, Pirates, Crystal Palace. There's a section on Tomorrowland, Spaceship Earth, Storybook Circus, among a few others. I think there's also Carousel Progress is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
And a couple Epcot attractions too, I think.
Yes, and if you buy his book from Barnes & Noble, he actually did a Barnes & Noble special where Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the book were together in one volume.
Oh, okay.
So if you buy it from Barnes & Noble, you're actually getting Volume 1 and Volume 2 in the first book.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy them from Amazon, you can get Volumes 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And also, fun fact, when we asked him about, on our podcast, he was with us on Book of the Mouse, episode 17. We asked him about the cover art and putting that together, and actually every book is colored. The color schemes are based off of the original Disneyland tickets, like e-tickets, like the books. So if you get each book, there's a green, an orange, a blue, and it's those color palettes based on those tickets.
I never would have realized that.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
Yeah, he told us, he's like, yeah, I kind of wanted to do that. And he's like, and you would only know if you know.
Yeah.
So those fun Disney tidbits are really fun.
Oh, that's funny. So this book was published in 2017. We're talking about the first one here.
Mm-hmm.
It's 320 pages. And just to give you a little bit of background on the author, he actually teaches high school history in Greensboro, North Carolina. Been a big Disney fan. So he always has he's got great insight into all the history of Walt Disney World. And you guys had a really good time talking with him.
Yeah,
right?
he was great. We connected with him over Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And he found us, and as soon as he told us about his book and what it was about, me also being a high school history teacher, I was like, yes, we absolutely need to read this. So it's really fun, and it's really cool. It's unlike any other guidebook. I wouldn't even call it a guidebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great, especially if you're a fan who's been to the parks numerous times and you're looking to get something out of the park still every time you go, particularly in classic attractions that haven't changed.
Yeah.
This is great because then you're getting some of that cultural influence, some of the history that, like you said, the Imagineers pulled on, the folklore, the culture. I learned a lot about like Adventureland and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
Yeah.
I really liked this book a lot, and I think one of the reasons I really liked it was because I picked it up thinking it would be mostly okay, here's Pirates of the Caribbean. This is how it started. This was the, you know, what the vision was. This is how it played out, how each person worked into it. But it actually was less of that and more of a just, this is how it actually connects with our history.
Yeah.
And is this historically accurate? And this is what they were going for with this and stuff. And it's funny because you never, like, I guess, look at the attractions through those eyes. I thought it was really fascinating.
Yeah, I find, like, going back now after reading that and then, like, going on the rides now, it gives you, like, a new appreciation for what the rides, like, actually kind of symbolize.
And all the work that goes into it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right, so Main Street USA and Storybook Circus were my favorite sections to read because I just, as an American history teacher, just that pure Americana, I was, like, so into it. But yeah, like, that adventure, like, Jungle Cruise, I learned so much about, not just, like you said, it's not the history of the attraction, but why is it you have these kinds of, some of the humorous jokes that they make are actually references to British colonialism, or why is it that we're traveling through these areas? It's like, well, we would be able to do that because there were these jungle treks in the 1920s and 30s that people were paying vacations to go on. And that's why they pick that time period with these style boats and with these people dressed this way. And you're just like, whoa. It's not just, hey, let's pick a fun time and go with it. There's actually a lot of connections there to real history.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely recommend this book for anybody who loves Disney and wants to learn more
and
about
history, too.
And of course, and history, and wants to learn more about these classical attractions, for sure. Yeah. It's a really, really fascinating book. I thought it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, and he has a new series coming out where he is doing a dedicated book series on the 1964 World's Fair, and he's looking at every attraction that Disney built is getting its own book. And no one's really done that before. In most books that I've read, they get a chapter or something, but an actual full dedicated book on great moments with Mr. Lincoln, on Small World, in the 64 World's Fair, not in the parks, is going to be very interesting. He's very good at his research. He's fun to talk to. Connect with him on Twitter. It's a great place to start.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, oh my god, that sounds really cool.
And why don't you tell us what number 4 is?
Number 4 is Disney A to Z, the Encyclopedia by Dave Smith. This synopsis is pulled from Amazon.com. If you're curious about the Walt Disney World Company, this comprehensive encyclopedia is your one-stop guide, filled with significant achievements, short biographies, historic dates, and tons of trivia-worthy tidbits and anecdotes. This newly updated collection covers all things from Disney from A to Z through thousands of entries and more than 800 images. The 5th edition includes all the major Disney park attractions, restaurants, and shows, summaries of ABC and Disney television series, rundowns on all Disney and Disney Pixar films and characters, the latest and greatest from Marvel and Lucas, key actors, songs, and animators from Disney films and shows, and so much more. So this one, this edition that we're talking about, the 5th edition, was published in 2016. There are 864 pages.
And so the author, Dave Smith, he was hired in 1970 by Walt Disney's brother, Roy O. Disney. His first job was to catalog every item in the Walt Disney's executive suite at the Burbank studio, which was a space that had been left untouched after Walt Disney's death in December 1966. Smith's work allowed the company to recreate Walt's office for an installation built in 2015 to help inspire Disney's contemporary workforce. Smith was a prolific author of books about Walt Disney Company, including the company's official encyclopedia Disney A to Z. This is a really cool book, and actually we know about this book from your podcast.
Yes.
Otherwise I'd never seen this one
and
before.
I have to give Courtney, my co-host, credit for getting me into this book.
Yeah, I was listening to your podcast at work in the morning, and I bought the book by lunchtime.
Yeah,
I was like, this is so cool, I have to buy
right
it.
before Christmas, and we were like, oh, we gotta pour through this thing.
What's coming in the mail?
It's so cool. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not something you would sit and read, like, cover to cover, because it's an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
But as far as, like, coffee table books or something goes, it's really, really neat.
I really think everyone, if you claim to be a Disney fan, you need this on your bookshelf.
Yeah.
And that can be if you're a fan of films, if you're a fan of the parks, any aspect of the Disney company, it's great to have this. Courtney actually has 3 versions.
Oh, she does?
Because she's been connected with this book since she was in, oh my goodness, I think even elementary or middle school when she wrote her first 3rd grade research paper on Walt Disney. So she's had it for a while, and these are those books that sometimes it's good to have multiple editions because some might lose entries.
Right.
You gain entries.
Right.
But like you said, it's really fun to just like, oh, I want to know more about the movie Hunchback of Notre Dame. When was it? When did it release? Who was the cast?
Yeah.
How many Academy Awards did it get? You can just open this book and
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah.
And this is actually where we start a lot of our research for our podcast. We'll just open here, see what basic info we can get because it's a trusted source. It comes from Dave Smith is like my hero. He is the original Disney archivist. He started the Walt Disney Archives, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year.
Oh my god. That's awesome.
Yeah, look out for a traveling exhibit that's supposed to be going around the country.
I saw pictures of it.
I'm so excited.
They have Walt Disney's original like work desk in it.
Yeah, that's not going to be traveling.
No,
but you
I
can.
know, but
That
I saw
is in
currently
Burbank Studios,
where
so
they
they
have it,
maintain
yeah.
that. They have exhibits at like D23, but for their anniversary, they're going to be doing a traveling exhibit around the country. So get ready for that, listeners.
It did recently open. I saw pictures of it.
Oh, I'm so excited.
It looks really cool.
But he started doing this, and if you actually go on the D23 website, before he passed away recently, he had an ongoing column because he's emeritus now. He's left his role. There's other archivists in charge, but people would field him questions, and he would answer it using official Disney resources. So you can trust this.
Oh yeah.
All of these sources. I trust Dave Smith. He's edited stuff with other authors. Jim Corcus used to know Dave Smith pretty well, would ask him questions for research, and Dave Smith just knows his stuff.
Yeah.
So it's great. And we did a whole episode on this where we just kind of have fun, like picking things out. We asked listeners through social media to send us like entries they wanted to hear. Or if you didn't have an entry, we would just ask like, hey, pick a letter and a number, and we would just search for that entry number in the book.
Yeah.
Would you guys want to do that
Oh
right
my
now?
God.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
How about each of us? You go
Okay.
first. Just open
right.
to any random page or.
Well, how about this? So, Ange, give me a letter.
I almost said 7.
And
G.
G. Okay, give me a number, teen.
12.
Okay, G12. So we're going to turn to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. I'm going to turn to the G section of the book, and we're going to go to the 12th entry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Well, that was a good one.
11, 12. So 12 is Gallagher Goes West, Crusading Reporter. It says TV episode 2 aired on October 30th, 1966, directed by Joseph Sargent. Gallagher and his colleagues work for the recall of the corrupt mayor of Birmingham, even though the mayor tries to stop them by force. Stars Dennis Weaver, John McIntyre, Robert Mobley, Ray Teal, Jeanette Nolan, Larry D. Mann, and Peter Graves. So that's some
Okay.
TV
That's something.
episode. Right, but you'll find these random things in here. So maybe not quite something everyone would know,
Yeah,
but there's something new.
But you're learning. We're all learning here.
That's funny.
So yeah, it's just a fun thing to do that. It has
I saw it had a list of all the Emmy Awards that have been won, and
Yeah,
it was
it's
over
insane.
200.
Yeah.
up to this date.
Up to date.
When this was published. So it's just really fun. Or like if you're a fan of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, just open it up and read
Yeah.
about it. And it's a great place to start, especially if you just want a little bit more information to then jump off somewhere
yeah.
else.
Yep.
Sorry for the super random one.
I know. Let's
that we came
try a
across.
different one.
Okay.
Let's
Okay.
go with
Here, Ange, you want to look at the next one?
Yeah. All right. Emily, give me a letter.
We'll go for A for Angela.
Oh, that's fine. And teen number.
Um,
Don't give me like 87 or something.
No. How about 5?
All right.
Keep it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Abbott Chuck, or Chuck Abbott, legendary attractions host and foreman at Disneyland for 36 years, beginning in 1955. He was named a Disney legend in 2005.
Nice.
Interesting.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Right, so even a lot of those people that maybe I've never heard of him, but he's a Disney
Yeah.
legend. He's obviously done a lot for the company,
Yeah.
so you learn a little bit about everyone.
Yeah.
So now we know about
Dave
Chuck
Smith's
Abbott.
even now. They just announced, I think, this week that he's getting a window on Main Street in
Is he?
Disneyland.
Oh my god.
Oh, how
wow.
nice.
I'm like, it's about time.
Yeah.
He's did a lot of work.
Again,
Okay.
Dave Smith's my hero. May he rest in peace. But I'm so thankful for all he's done.
All
and
right, well,
this book being one of them.
and it's perfect. We'll do one more. Emily, how about you give me a letter?
Let's do K.
Yeah, that's a good letter. I like it.
No, Christy, I keep picking your letter.
It's decent.
I know.
Angela's like, A is better.
A
A
is
first.
better, but whatever.
I'm just. You had the Joy Luck Club in here? I'm sorry, I'm just flipping through to get to the K's. But all right, Ange, give me a number.
113.
Get out of here.
14. I said 14.
14. Okay, caramel couche. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sorry, my German's not there. But it's a shop in Germany in the Epcot Pavilion, opened September 27th, 2010, sponsored by Stork and Werther's Candy. A show kitchen features cast members making fresh caramel treats. It opened as the only freestanding retail location in the world for Stork, and it took place of the glass and porcelain shop. Which, love that shop.
I was gonna say my mouth is like watering just thinking about that shop.
It always smells so good.
It's so good. Their caramel's so good.
Caramel covered popcorn. Oh,
I just got a chunk. Last time I
dreams.
went, I just got a chunk of caramel. And
They do that. They sell just chunks, and they'll dip it in chocolate. And it's sometimes a little sea salt on the top. So good.
But just on this encyclopedia, that reminds me of like doing research projects when I was a kid with encyclopedias at school. But I like this one way more because it's actually fun.
Yeah, I found myself a couple times when I got the book. I got it for my birthday not long after my program. And when I got it, I just sat there for like an hour and just like opened to random pages and just like skimmed it.
Yeah, it's
and then opened it to another random page and skimmed it. And it's just cool. And then sometimes when you, again, have that question, that's what encyclopedias are for. You can be like, wait, I can get the answer. You go to your shelf.
Fool all of your friends and win every argument with this book, you know?
And you don't need Google.
To do it. All right, so, Ange, what's number 3 for us today?
All right, number 3 is the Kingdom Keeper series by Ridley Pearson. There are 7 books in the series. Number 1 is Disney After Dark. 2 is Disney at Dawn. 3 is Disney in Shadow. 4 is Power Play. 5, Shell Game. 6, Dark Passage. And 7, The Insider. I didn't realize there were 7 of these. I only thought there were 4.
Yeah, and then I think that there's some kind of a spin-off series, right?
So after this, he has a short 3-book series called The Return.
Okay.
Which takes place for these characters. So there's like 5 kid characters that are helping save the parks from the Disney villains. Mm-hmm. So The Return is a follow-up series on them, so they're a little bit older.
Okay.
I have not read that series yet. We covered this series on Book of the Mouse as our summer series last year in 2019, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So we do plan to do the Return series in the future. Yeah. So I haven't touched it yet because I know we're going to get to it. But then he does also have a couple books. There's these characters called Fairlies, which are kind of like fairies, but they're normal-sized people.
Yeah.
They just have these special abilities. Like 2 of the characters, one can move things with her mind, the other one can kind of see the future. So he has, I think, 1 or 2 stories that are a spin-off of them.
Yeah.
And then he's supposedly writing another series based off of the original characters like Finn and his kids. So like Finn's kids. So like present day now. So what's cool is when these were written, it was present day at the time. So if you are super nostalgic, like our age group to like probably 35, so young 20s through 35, if you were like Disney in the 2000s was my jam, these are the books for you.
Oh yeah.
Talk about like online virtual Magic Kingdom,
DCOM. So cool. Yeah.
It's so jam-packed. Disney, downtown Disney, not Disney Springs. It was downtown Disney. Disney Quest is in this. Like, a lot of defunct things are still in here because they were current at the time.
Right.
So I'm really curious to see his new series because of the change in the parks.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting.
He's, just to talk about the author real quick, Ridley Pearson. He's a pretty illustrious author. So I've actually read, I don't know if you've read it yet, Emily, but Peter and the Starcatchers.
I haven't.
One of his big books. It's a really good book if you get a chance to read that one, too. He's actually the first American to be awarded the Raymond Chandler Fulbright Fellowship in Detective Fiction at Wadham College, Oxford University. And he's also the best-selling author of over 50 novels. So he's been writing a lot, including Peter and the Starcatchers, which is very popular, the Kingdom Keeper series. And he's also written 24 other crime novels, including Probable Cause, Beyond Recognition, Killer Weekend, The Risk Agent, and The Red Room. And his novel, The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, is a prequel to a Stephen King miniseries, actually.
Oh.
And it was a #1 New York Times bestseller and an ABC TV movie in 2009. So Peter and the Starcatchers is a popular book by him. That actually was a successful Broadway stage show. It won 5 Tony Awards for its Broadway run, and it's actually currently touring the U.S. And I found this to be really fascinating. Ridley is also one of the founding members of, and he plays bass guitar in, an all-author rock band called the Rock Bottom Remainders. And they have a website and they do shows. This band also has Dave Barry, Stephen King, Scott Turow, Mitch Albom, Roy Blount Jr., James McBride, Amy Tan, and Greg Isles. And the band has actually raised over $2.5 million for charities.
He's really a Renaissance man. Look at all of
That's
this.
crazy.
Theater, books, music.
Right?
I just can't believe they all get together and like play music.
When I saw Amy Tan, I was like, the author of the Joy Luck Club. My goodness.
Can you see Stephen King just like
rocking
out on the drums or something?
Yeah, he's the tambourine. You just sit there with the tambourine.
That's amazing. I love it. I have to look them up now. I had no idea.
Want to go
No.
see them.
I know. I want to contribute.
I would have contributed. It's great they donate all that money to charity too. It's really cool.
Oh my
But
god, yeah.
to talk more about the series, I'll admit, I've only read book 1 in this series.
I read 1 and 2.
And yeah, but I really enjoyed it. It had a lot more like twists and turns than I was expecting. Like as far as like young adult, I guess you would say maybe more children's genre this would be.
I would place this probably at middle school.
Like
Yeah.
middle school
So when
level.
the characters in the books start, they're in 7th or 8th grade, and by the time the series ends, they're like sophomores in high school.
Okay.
So in that age range, it's written for the kids that are basically portrayed in this book.
Yeah.
So if you have kids that age, I definitely recommend it for them. But even as adults, though, I think it's
I
a ton
thoroughly
of
I read
fun.
enjoyed
when I was
it.
older, yeah.
Yeah.
I read, like I said, in the summer, so they were great beach reads. They move very quickly.
Yep.
And he keeps your attention. He does such a great job of integrating all sorts of Disney aspects. So like I said, he has the plot that ties in with the parks, as well as Disney history. So you learn things about,
Yeah.
like they keep also talking about Disneyland. It goes to every park. So throughout, by the time you go through all 7 books of the original series, you're in Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Animal Kingdom, Disney Hollywood, now Hollywood Studios, MGM at the time. You go on the cruise line, you go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
So you hit pretty much everything domestic. You go to Castaway Cay.
I think there's Typhoon Lagoon in one of them.
Typhoon
too.
Lagoon is
Yeah.
in there. So you hit every aspect of the park. So if you're a Parks fan, that's in there. The characters are in it. They
Yeah.
come, like Disney classic characters are in this and come to life and help the kids. So you just get all sorts of goodies for all Disney
Yeah,
fandom.
it's really cool.
We said the VMK and the DComs,
Yeah.
like all of that's
it's
in
so
there.
cool. I definitely recommend this series. It's a lot of fun.
It's so much fun. And I really hope, my hope, number one thing, if you ask me, like, what do you want Disney Plus to pick up? I want them to pick up Kingdom Keepers
I didn't even
and turn
think
this
of
into a
that.
series.
That would be so cool. That would be
I
such a
didn't think
cool
that would
series.
Disney, if you
really
hear
cool
us, we
series.
want a Kingdom
Please,
Keepers
Disney.
series.
Please, Disney.
I think it would just translate so well on screen.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
people
now with
would
the
like it.
technology we have. And they could even bring it a little bit more forward to the current park landscape. They
Sure.
wouldn't necessarily need to take it back to
Yeah.
the 2000s.
No, yeah.
But it's such a great plot, and he is clearly a good mystery writer for a reason. Like, you had no
right.
idea how this was going to play out.
Yeah.
And there's so many puzzles in here, like
Yeah.
word puzzles and mind games, that you're sitting there going, I don't know how to unscramble this.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know how it ends. Yeah.
It's
really
so
cool
good.
too, because like I feel like reading it, so like they go back to the park at night when the park's closed and like things happen in the park, and it's just kind of like I when as a kid I always thought, well, what happens after the park's closed and no one's in the park anymore, and then they give you this like idea, and I was like, well, that would be pretty crazy. It's kind of like a Night at the Museum kind of like
It
idea
is,
of
you're
like
right.
things coming to life at night when the park is closed, and I'm like, well, that's what I pictured.
That's exactly.
It is really cool. And especially if you are a really good, like, if you've been to the parks as much as we have, you can see it in your mind.
my
When
God.
you're like, I'm
Yeah.
walking down Main Street
It's
USA
so-
into
yeah.
this shop, you're like, I know exactly where that is. I struggled a little bit on the Disneyland one because I've never been to Disneyland.
Yeah.
But like they talk about Fantasmic and like all
Yes.
these things going down, and the villains play such a big role. And I feel like villains have really made a comeback as really popular characters.
Villains
Yeah.
are really killing it right now. They have that villains night and everything.
Yeah.
That's really popular.
And the villains are cool. They're
Yeah.
such great dynamic
Oh, yeah.
characters.
Mhm.
And it's fun to see them play off each other. And I don't know if this would be a spoiler. This series has been out for a while, but like Chernobog's in this. So like
Yeah.
no movie is left unturned. Like it's not just let's focus on like the princess films. But they
Right.
go all the way back to Fantasia of
Yeah.
1940. Like
Yeah.
it's awesome. And it reintroducing the kids, like they play off that. They're like, I'm not really familiar with this. So you see them do the research and you're learning Disney history and new characters, traveling through the parks, solving mysteries. It's really fun.
It
was
is.
a lot of
It's
fun,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
definitely recommend it. Okay, so number 2. We have Dream It, Do It by Marty Sklar. So, a little brief synopsis. This is also provided by Barnes & Noble for you. Marty Sklar was hired by the Walt Disney Company after his junior year at UCLA, and he began his Disney career at Disneyland in July 1955, the month before the park opened. He spent his first decade at Disney as the kid, the very youngest of the creative team that Walt had assembled at WED Enterprises. But despite his youth, his talents propelled him forward into substantial responsibility. He became Walt's speechwriter. He penned Walt's and Roy's messages in the company's annual reports. He composed most of the publicity and marketing materials for Disneyland, conceived presentations for the U.S. government, devised initiatives to obtain sponsors to enable new Disneyland developments, and he wrote a 24-minute film expressing Walt's philosophy for the Walt Disney World project in Epcot. He was Walt's literary right-hand man. Over the next 40 years, Marty Sklar rose to become president and principal creative executive of Walt Disney Imagineering, and he devoted his entire career to creating, enhancing, and expanding Walt's magical empire. This beautifully written and enlightening book is Marty's own retelling of his epic Disney journey, a grand adventure that lasted over half a century. It was published in 2013. It's 384 pages, and it is definitely something any Disney fan should read, in my opinion. I think it's a really great book.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's such a fascinating person.
I mean, think, like you just said, with his career, he spans from the opening of Disneyland in July, opening month, 1955, all the way through the opening of Hong Kong Disney.
Yeah.
So he's been there
amazing.
for Disney World, Paris, Tokyo, Hong Kong. He was
saw
a
all
big
of it.
developing piece in Epcot.
Yeah.
At the time, particularly after Walt's death, he was one of the right-hand people that a lot of people turned to who said, you knew Walt really well. What's his vision? So there were that like handful of people that basically kept the company going because they understood Walt and his vision, and he's one of them. He also recently passed away, unfortunately. But such a remarkable life that if you are a fan of the parks but also want to learn about Walt, Marty has such a great perspective because he spans a lot longer of the park history than Walt did, but also knew Walt. So you get a lot of those stories as well. His chapter describing Walt's death, so emotional, so beautifully done.
Well,
Gosh,
just a
I couldn't
fantastic.
believe-
He's such a fantastic writer, and he would write up until, unfortunately, he passed away. Because we used to get my parents get the DVC Files magazine, and he had an excerpt in that magazine every month until he passed away. So he, even though he was retired, he was still writing and
Right away. Yeah.
sharing
And that
all
was his bread and
stories.
butter. When he moved
Yeah.
into Imagineering, he was writing. He was
Yeah.
a story writer. He was that overall concept, those pitches, like the synopsis said, to different companies. Him talking about the World's Fair and pitching to different companies to get them to sponsor, as well as for Epcot. Very cool stories.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that. I actually got to meet Marty. When
Did
I
you?
bought my book,
What?
he was doing a book signing at the Art of Disney in Disney Springs.
Oh, no way.
And that's how I got my copy of the book. I happened to not be working that day. So I bought, at the time, that book and One Little Spark.
Okay.
Both of his books that were available at the time. And got hit, and he signed them for me.
That
So I
is
didn't really
so
get to talk to him
special.
very much, but he signed both of my books, and we had like a good 2-minute conversation because you don't really get to talk to them very
Yeah,
long. There's
right.
a line of people, but wished me luck on my program, and that he was very happy that so many young people are still living
Oh my
the
gosh,
Disney
that is
dream.
So cool.
So I got to meet him in 2015. So this book was super special, and this was the first book we covered on Book in the Mouse Club. So technically episode 2, past our intro
Yeah.
episode, but it was, we knew this was the first book we wanted to cover because
Yeah.
we're like, dream it, do it. What better message?
Yeah, it's
Right,
so inspirational.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a book worth reading. I think I could recommend it to anybody. I think you would enjoy it very much, especially if you're big Disney fans. Because there's so much that goes on in the background and so much, who thinks of the writing when they think of, Disney World and Disney movies and
I
stuff?
wish there
You
was
don't
still
think
a
of the background
newspaper.
stuff.
Disneyland had a
know.
newspaper. That was his
I
first
know.
job. Like, why doesn't Disney World have a newspaper? I want a newspaper
a
to pick up
newspaper.
on Main Street
People
when I'm
pick it
there.
up all the time, sure.
It'd be
Yeah.
so fun.
It'd be fun to
But we have
see
Twitter
here.
now. So
Well, now there's
Guess
the
who's
internet.
Twitter? It's true.
ruining
Come on.
ruining the literary genius. But yeah, great book. Highly, highly recommend Marty Sklar and his works.
Okay, so Ange, why don't you bring us home with number 1?
Number 1, we've got Walt Disney, an American Original by Bob Thomas. Synopsis provided by Barnes & Noble. Walt Disney is an American hero. From Mickey Mouse to Disneyland, he changed the face of American culture. He is a success story like no other, a man who developed animated film into an art form and made a massive contribution to the folklore of the world. After years of research, respected Hollywood biographer Bob Thomas produced a definitive biography of the man behind the legend of Disney, the unschooled cartoonist from Kansas City who went bankrupt on his first movie venture and developed into the genius who produced unmatched works of animation and ultimately was the creative spirit of an international entertainment empire that has enchanted generations. Complete with the collection of rare photographs, Walt Disney, an American Original, is a fascinating and inspirational work that captures the spirit of Walt Disney. This was published in 1994. I didn't realize that was...
I didn't realize until we started doing the research on this book, I didn't realize it was published in 94 either.
There are 384 pages. This author has also written... You said, Teen, he wrote a lot of biographies, right?
A lot of biographies. Also a lot of Disney biographical materials for the Disney Publishing Company. He wrote biographies on Fred Astaire, Bing Crosby, Joan Crawford, Walter Winchell, just to name a couple. And then he's also had Disney books such as Building a Company, Roy O. Disney and the Creation of an Entertainment Empire, The Art of Animation, From Mickey Mouse to Beauty and the Beast, and its revision, The Art of Animation from Mickey Mouse to Hercules. And he was actually issued a special commendation at the Disney Legends ceremony in 2001. I have to say, I love this book. I tell everybody
it's great.
to
I've read it
book.
twice.
I picked it up several years ago, actually on a trip to Disney. I always like to try to pick up books when I'm there because they have such fun stuff. And I guess I expected it to be, because it's actually published by Disney, it's a Disney Editions book, I expected it to be very kind of almost like sugar-coated, like, hey, here's Walt, he was the greatest guy ever, super awesome, super creative, just the best. And it actually took me by surprise that they really don't sugarcoat anything in that book.
No,
it's raw. They show every good and bad thing about him.
This is actually the only Walt Disney biography to be commissioned by the family.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bob Thomas wrote this, he had access to so many more materials, pictures, interviews with family members that a lot of other biographers did not have.
Mm-hmm.
So that really helped in his writing, and that's why they picked him, was they really liked his other Hollywood biographies and how truthful and objective he writes, but also that he's very humanizing. I think is the best way I could put it. That, like you said, he really balances that Walt was, in respects, a genius, a creative genius, incredible accomplishments, but he doesn't shy away from the failures. Walt's shortcomings with his temper or struggles he had with his family trying to balance the work-life balance with this. But he also credits a lot of stuff to Roy. He brings in a lot of other players and reminds people that, like, Walt didn't do this alone. He had this team, and so I agree. It's a great biography, and he writes so well. It doesn't read like a very dry, the stereotypes that biographies get. He proves that biographies do not have to be dry or unhumorous or just factual and boring. It was very factual, but also very entertaining to read at the same time.
It's very easy not to put this book down. Because like you said, with some biographies, sometimes it'll take me a little while to get through them. You know, you have to be in like the right mood and stuff. But with this one, you just never want to put it down. I think it's just really, really well done. Even like the sections where they were talking about the union. The strikes.
A lot of people, a lot of Disney material shy away from the strikes, and this one does not.
No, they talked about it in full detail, and I mean, it just showed you like every aspect of it, and it showed how he dealt with it and stuff, and how it wasn't the kind of the best way to deal with it. But like I said, it wasn't like building Walt Disney up to be just this like creative genius, this god, you know. It really shows how he was a real man. He had, you know, like you said, shortcomings, he had faults, you know, as a father, as a husband, even as a creator and stuff too. If you're going to read any Walt Disney biography, definitely make it this one. Because I know there are many out there. I was in Barnes & Noble not that long ago, and I saw probably like 4 or 5 of them on the shelf.
But Bob Thomas is
definitely the one to read.
especially like I said with the family being behind this one.
Mm-hmm.
That to me also gives it a lot of credit because of the access to those materials and their interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't read this, but after hearing you guys talk about it and seeing all your notes about it, like, I can't wait to read it. I'm adding it to my list.
It's definitely a really great, awesome book.
Yes.
I can see why it's number one.
Duh. Now we have our 2 honorable mentions.
This was tough.
Right?
Yeah.
When you guys asked me for my top 5, I'm like, well, I've read 30 plus just for my podcast work. It was so hard to pick. But I really like these honorable mentions. They're fun and they're more light reads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, not necessarily about Disney, more of a Disney movie inspiration. But we have, for our first one, Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. Which, who doesn't love Winnie the Pooh?
It's true.
Let's be honest. He's the best. I mean, I'm not going to give you guys a synopsis of this one, because hopefully you know.
If you don't know
of
it, shame.
Yes.
No.
Hopefully you know it. But, I mean, it's such a classic. I read recently that Winnie the Pooh is, to this day, the best-selling children's book, which I have to say surprised me a little bit, because I thought Harry Potter. But,
I mean, Winnie the Pooh, though, has been out since the end of 1920, so he's he's older than Mickey.
Yeah, I know.
Pooh is older than Mickey, and in some ways, and you might see this around the parks too, and for some people, more popular than Mickey.
Yeah,
People love Pooh.
I don't think you would meet one person.
Winnie the Pooh, I should probably say that.
That's true. I don't think you would meet one little kid who doesn't know who Winnie the Pooh is.
Yeah.
Or any of his
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak internationally, but between the US and the UK, definitely.
Oh my
Everyone
God,
knows
yeah.
who Winnie the Pooh is.
Yeah.
This is actually the book that, like when you go to baby showers and they say,
Yeah.
like, bring a book,
Oh,
not
yeah.
a card. This is the book I love to bring.
That's a good one.
Because I feel like not a lot of people go for Winnie the Pooh, so I feel like there's not going to be, like, 7 little engines that could
right.
when I bring it.
Or Cat in the Hats.
Right,
Yeah.
but I just think this book also has incredible staying power. I know I've been saying that, like, throughout this whole podcast, but this is why these are top books for us, because they stick with you. And what I really love about these is that these are great children's stories, especially when you read them. It does have a tone that it's a narrator telling you something, so it is very storytelly sounding. He uses a lot of first and second person. But it's also episodic, so you can really read just, like, one chapter together and put it down. But even as an adult, when I went back and read this, there's a lot of adult themes in this as well. One example I'll give is it's very clear that Eeyore suffers from depression.
Oh, yeah.
But you see how Pooh and Piglet treat Eeyore as a true friend. And as adults, we see it as signs of depression. But for a kid, it's teaching a lesson of just be kind to your friends when they're sad.
Sure.
So it has all these great lessons, as well as being cute and quirky and Pooh's silly ways and his little thinking corner.
Yeah.
But it has such great lessons for everybody that it's such a great family piece.
And such lovable characters that
You can see why Disney was drawn to this to turn this into the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and then put it in the parks.
Yeah, it has so much appeal for, I think, anybody. Also, a little bit of a sidebar, not to do with the book, but if you ever get a chance to watch the movie, it's called Goodbye, Christopher Robin.
Oh,
that movie
Not
killed
done
me.
by
Oh my God, I
Disney.
cried so much.
I think it was Fox. Oh my gosh.
Right,
If you
it's-
like Winnie the Pooh,
It's like
please
a
watch that
biographical film of A.A. Milne.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh my God.
so
I
good.
watched it on my flight to England. It was one of the in-house
perfect.
movies.
Yeah.
Cried.
I was sobbing. I was crying. I was like,
but
what
it's
is
like in a
happening?
good way. You're like, this is so beautiful. It was wonderful.
It's a fantastic movie. Not a Disney movie, like I said, but
No, but it's got
Definitely
Who's the girl in it?
Margot
Robbie,
Robbie
and
is in it.
then the
And
guy is
Dom Hall Gleason.
yeah.
Plays A.A. Milne, and the little kid that plays Christopher
cute.
Robin.
Oh my God.
and it's
really
a lot
good.
of it is very factual. I was like Googling stuff on Wikipedia and
To find out
so
like how actually it was.
close this is, and it very much is. And if you're ever in New York City, free attraction, go to the New York Public Library. I don't know why it's not in England, but the Christopher Robin's stuffed animals are in the children's section of
really?
the public
Oh my
library.
God.
Yeah, I went and saw them last year.
That surprises me.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they're not in England.
Yeah.
Like, why are they here? And when
I'm
I was
not complaining, but
Yeah.
and because they have in England all of A. Milne's and the illustrator, his name is escaping me.
oh, it's something with an E.
Oh my goodness, his name is escaping me. Because then his daughter also illustrated something else for Disney. It was like so incredible. But I was at the British Museum and they had a whole temporary exhibit on Winnie the Pooh and those drawings and A.A. Milne, and I was like, oh, we have to see it, and the tickets were sold out, and I was so sad. E.H. Shepard.
E.H. Shepard. Okay.
Yeah, so his drawing style is just incredible.
I love those original drawings. I think they're
I think it was like really nice that in Christopher Robin, which was a Disney movie, it was kind of like they took the illustrated characters and like kind of brought those to life, rather than
it's not the Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin is not the Winnie the Pooh you meet in the parks,
right. And I love that, and then I love that they made them into stuffed animals because they were just like
they're so cute. But you can see the originals, so if you ever make it to New York City, go see the originals and then pick up the book.
It's such a good book for anybody. And then our next honorable mention is, of course, Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers.
P.L. Travers.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's such a hoot and a character.
Not to sit here and keep throwing movies at you guys, but if you get a chance, please watch Saving Mr. Banks.
Oh, so
which
good.
is all about P.L. Travers working with Walt Disney to make Mary Poppins the movie. And what a little sassafras she was.
That's a perfect word.
A little sassafras. She was, oh my goodness. It's a great movie. It's on Netflix, by the way, so please check it out.
Yeah.
But there is no denying that the original Mary Poppins books have just such a classic place in every kid's heart, every adult's heart. They have such important life lessons in them that, kids might not necessarily like pick up on at first, but you look back at them as an adult and you're like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
I can see it's good to be teaching kids these things.
Aunt, have you read Mary Poppins?
I haven't. And I need to.
I didn't read it until we did our podcast. There's a lot of children's books.
I didn't read it as a kid either, I'm gonna
And it like surprised me that I did. Almost like Kingdom Keepers, that I was surprised. I was like, I was the target audience at some point and I never read this.
Yeah.
But on our podcast, we highly suggest, if you love the films, which I know all three of us do, read the original text. You're going to find the original text of Mary Poppins and what Disney did with it, incredibly different.
Oh, I'm sure.
Only really the first 30 minutes of Mary Poppins, the film, comes really from the book. And a lot of the stuff from Saving Mr. Banks, I definitely see it in Mary Poppins, but I was like, I wasn't always getting the father feel that like Saving Mr. Banks tells us, but it's up to so much interpretation. But I highly suggest, like with Winnie the Pooh, Mary Poppins, read Grimm's fairy tales, read the original text, and you can see these are great stories. There's a reason why Disney, use them, and what also inspires Disney animators and Imagineers to also be good storytellers themselves for those original stories they do is because they know where to turn to good stories to get inspiration. So I highly suggest it. Mary Poppins is fun. It's for a younger age group than Kingdom Keepers, so this is great for elementary. I would say as early as 3rd grade. Maybe second if you've got a strong reader, but just because the vocabulary being written in the 30s, it is a little bit of an elevated vocabulary. And they do use more like kind of British slangs and terms. So I would say that we picked 2 British authors for our honorable mention.
We should have did Peter Pan and just thrown that 3rd one.
I can't wait till we cover Peter Pan. It's one of my favorites. But I highly suggest, it's a great series, and you can see those stories in the original Mary Poppins, in Mary Poppins Returns, Saving Mr. Banks. So it pulls a lot, and it's a great. I really enjoyed it. They were fun stories. They're silly. It reminded me a little bit of like. Did you guys read Amelia Bedelia?
Yes, I did.
She's like almost like a silly nanny who does silly things. Hers was more like not on purpose, whereas Mary Poppins is very intentional in all that she does. But it's great stories, and it's so imaginative, and they're fun to read, even as an adult.
Right? Because I didn't read these when I was young. I read them when I was older, and I was like, this
Disney
is what I
and all these things are for the kid in all of us. So I highly suggest them. These are great places to start. If, maybe picking up a biography is not really your style, I say go for the original texts of a lot of the movies.
Oh, yeah.
And you have, like you said, you have so much fun seeing the differences, too. Being like, oh, okay.
The things they pulled are like, why would you pick to do this? And you read the original text, you're like, oh my gosh, it's actually such an important element. Or little Easter eggs that reference the book, even though they didn't, go fully in that direction.
Right. I think, what were we watching? Oh, we were watching Frozen 2 the other day. And you know where they have that line where she's watching... I don't know if I should say if this gives it too much away, but she's watching a memory of the parents, and the mom goes to the dad and she's like, "What are you reading?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know, just some Danish author." And I was like, "Ha ha!"
Hey, it's Christian Andersen.
Christian Andersen.
That, or even in Mary Poppins, you know, in the opening scene when Bert is doing his one-man band,
Uh-huh.
and he talks to the twins that have the short little mother.
Yeah.
They're not any bigger piece in that story, but if you read the book, they actually have a whole thing where they own a gingerbread shop, and they go there. They use foil from the sky to wrap their candies and treats in, and, like from the stars in the sky.
Yeah.
So they're actually these really big characters in the actual book. They have a whole story.
Yeah.
But you only see them as a glimpse in the movie.
Yeah.
But if you read the book, you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's the twins with the gingerbread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know that unless you read the book.
Man.
And there's I should have written down how many different Mary Poppins books there are, but
think
there
there's-
are several.
Yeah, there's several.
She wrote them for a good long time.
Yeah.
And so if you're entranced by the first one, please keep reading the rest of them.
Yeah. Man, I have so many books I have to read now.
I know.
So, before we close out, Emily, where can we find your podcast and, like, any social media that you have?
So our podcast, Book of the Mouse Club, is available anywhere that you get podcasts. So where if you found Tiki Room Talk, you will find us.
Yeah. We use their same host.
Yeah, Lisbon, but
That's
also iTunes, Spotify,
Google Play Music.
Google Play
yeah.
Music. We're on all of those. On social media, you can catch up with us on Twitter. We are at Book of the Mouse, and also on Instagram, we are Book of the Mouse as well. But if you want to email us, we're at bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com.
Okay.
That's what it is. So online, social media, at Book of the Mouse, cute little Mickey icon reading a book.
Yeah.
And
You guys post
if
really
you want to
cute
email
pictures,
us.
So.
Thanks.
Follow them on Instagram.
We have fun.
Yes.
Again, with Courtney living in Disney area, she has a lot of fun taking the books around the parks and
I know,
taking
I
pictures.
love it
And I'm
so
like
much.
so jealous. She's like, yeah, I'm waiting in line to get a picture of the book here. And I'm like, I'm sitting at my desk grading papers.
I know.
So she does a lot of great photos. I am able to get a few at home if I have some fun stuff to
Some
look
nice
around,
good
but she does a lot of it.
Bookshelf shots.
The most recent bookshelf shot was mine. I'm
Yeah.
so proud of my
Yeah.
bookshelf. I'm getting a second bookshelf now that I moved. I have more
Now we
space,
have a new
so now I can
bookshelf,
have
yeah.
more books. I don't have to go to the library as much. I can actually buy them now, so I'll have somewhere to put them. But yeah, please
Awesome.
catch up with us,
Yes.
and if you can find Tiki Room Talk, as you already have, you can find us.
Yes. And thank you so much for being on the show. It's been so much fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to do this. We've
Oh
been
my
talking
God,
about it for
yes.
a while, and I love listening to your show. It's so much fun. So I hope we get to share some new listeners between this.
Yeah, that would be
that'd
awesome.
great.
And hopefully this episode was interesting for our listeners. There are many amazing books that we did not cover, so we'd love to hear your feedback and what you would put on your top 5 list of Disney books.
Yeah, leave us a comment on social media with your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, and thank you guys for listening.
And we'll see you real soon.